It was something off topic. It was about Rareable. It's not on topic, mate. Don't worry.
Oh, no worries. Wait, what happened on Rarible?
I don't know if you guys saw, but they have pulled Flow from Rareable. And so if you go onto the Rareable website, you can't log in with Blockto anymore. And
Really?
yeah, and so I sent a message privately to someone at Rareable because I'm actually managing our integration there for the company that I work for. And they've said that they've had issues indexing NFTs on the Flow blockchain. But it looks really fishy to me because they've not only pulled the Blockto login, they've also got rid of the all the Flow channels in the Rarible Discord. And unless you were kind of like detaching and removing that kind of partnership slash integration, why would you get rid of the Flow Discord channels? Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's frustrating because obviously we had Alchemy leave last month, and Alchemy is like one of the biggest companies in blockchain. So if Rarible end up leaving Flow as well, it doesn't look good.
Wow. About the for I'm like simultaneously banning these bots from like so annoying. But yeah, that's crazy to hear, but I had no idea it was even going on. Although on the Alchemy thing, I was actually psyched when Alchemy left because I ever since Alchemy like joined in the flow space to do like to query users' accounts, it was just like horrible and they were like the worst. But if Rarible left, that would stink because they do have like a pretty big reputation in the flow space.
Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. I mean, they've kind of like told me, "Oh, not like don't worry, it's just a temporary thing," but yeah, they might just be kind of saying that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's weird. All right, so without further ado, welcome everyone. I see a bunch of familiar faces here. So hello everybody. Falcon, what's up? What's up? Sweet, thanks for joining. Raven, Phil, Lanford. Lanford, we're actually gonna be using Flowview today. Thanks for joining Calcoin. Hero, I haven't seen you in a while, but welcome in, Hero, from the Academy. FR Labs also welcome in back from our Emerald Bot days. Drip, good to see you. Courtside as well. Also, Courtside recently made his NBA Top Shot profile picture afloat, which I thought was pretty sick. Of course, welcome BZ, BT Spoonie, welcome in. Boom and Amethyst, hey everyone. I pretty much know all of you and very excited you're all here. So what I'm going to be doing today is just giving you a pretty dumbed down explanation of what happened on Flow recently. So I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of it at this point, but let me actually pull up the tweet. Can all of you see my screen, by the way? Just making sure everyone can see the
Yeah.
screen. Okay, perfect. You're not allowed to spoil it, Boom. But don't worry, I will spoil it soon. So basically, Matrix Market came out with an announcement recently. I won't read this entire thing, but basically they said that they had recently actually they were kind of vague about the vulnerability a little bit. In not in like a mean way, but in the sense that they didn't like really describe what happened. They said that there was something in their contract that actually was malicious and was exposing users' accounts. That's actually by definition that's not true. It wasn't their contract that was a bug. It was actually a transaction that they had users run. So they I want to preface this whole meeting by saying that Matrix Market did not do this maliciously. They're not a bad actor. They're a great community and a great team, and they didn't mean to do this. It was simply one of their developers didn't understand what they were doing and accidentally exposed a user's flow vault without knowing it. And that's sort of why I want to keep this session very informational and very educational because again, this isn't a malicious thing they did. It's more that I want to help educate, all of you who are developers on Flow, not make the same mistake again. So, I want to, yeah. So this is like the context for that. So I'm going to show you the transaction that actually exposed users' accounts, which is right here. So if you want to take a look, I just pasted it in chat. This is the transaction that actually kind of screwed users over. Um, and I'm going to explain this I know a lot of you here are Academy graduates, so you're going to understand this pretty well. So, if you want to cut to the chase, it was this line right here. So this one line right here exposed users' flow vaults to the public. So what this means is
Jacob,
it, yeah.
can I ask one quick question? How did you find this transaction? Did you just go into Flow Scan and just scroll back historically and click through the transactions, or did someone send it to you? How did you get this?
Someone sent this to me, so they actually, I'm pretty sure they actually released this with their announcement, saying this was the
Right.
bad one. Yeah. But
Okay,
you
cool.
also could scroll back in history and find this.
Yeah.
Um,
I I screenshot one when I tried Matrix World when they are have some bugs, so I pasted the screenshot. You can see that.
Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Bohao. Um, so yeah, this is the one line. Now it's actually kind of crazy to think that one line could completely expose users' flow vaults. And by the way, when I say expose,
Let's scroll back and find it.
oh yeah, so when I say expose, I mean that basically I could withdraw any amount of flow from your account. So technically, if you ran this transaction, I'd be able to withdraw all your flow. Now, I'm going to explain why that is, and to do that, I want to take a step back. Now, if you understand linking, this is going to get a bit boring for you, but this is like the explanation for non-technical people. So when you have an account, right? Like, you log in with your Blockdo wallet. This is your account storage. You have, like, let's just say a box of everything that you own. Now, this is different in Solidity because what happens in Solidity is you essentially have a smart contract that looks like this. And the smart contract is just a bunch of random code, right? It's code that you don't understand because we're not being technical people here. We just want to use the blockchain, right? So there's a lot of code here. Now, what's interesting is that you have an account that lives over here, right? This is you as a person, and your assets, they don't live in your account. They actually live in the smart contract. So your account almost points to an area inside of the smart contract. So this is very different how it works in Solidity. But on Flow, there's also an open mic. I'm going to mute that. On Flow, all of your assets actually live inside of your account. So it's very different in Cadence, once again, because you have complete ownership over your assets. So inside of Flow, I have all my floats, my Flowitars, my flunks, and you can think of these sub boxes right here. You can think of these as like individual collections. So I have a float collection, I have a Flowitar collection, flunks collection, and in addition, I also have other things like, fungible tokens. I have Flow, I have FUSD, right? And these are just random numbers here. So this is what your account looks like. Now, if we were to scroll down a bit, let's just take this flow box right here and let's expand it. Let's put that flow box right here and let's figure out exactly, what to do. Now, I'm actually reading from BT. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bohal, for putting that in the chat. So yeah, let's take this box and figure out what happens with it. So each one of these boxes, right? I'm using flow in this example, but each one of these boxes has certain permissions associated with it. There's things that you can do as the owner, and there's things that the public can do as just the general public. And the cool thing is that in Cadence, you get to decide, who has what permissions. So of course, you as the owner, you have all the permissions. You can always do the most with your stuff, right? In the Flow Vault, we can withdraw, we can deposit, we can read the balance of this vault. And of course, the public, if they wanted to, they can deposit, right? Because we don't care if people deposit to our vault, and they can also read our balance. Now, the way this is done, and I'm not going to get too technical here, but the concept here is something called, a resource interface. So in a sense, this flow vault is a resource. We call this a resource right here. So I'll just call this a resource. And resource interfaces are all of these arrows. This is what allows us to have different capabilities for different types of people. So again, I can withdraw, deposit, and rebalance, but the public can only deposit and rebalance, okay? So this is all done through something called resource interfaces. However, what this does right here, if we zoom in even more, this account.link, this link creates another arrow. And the problem is that what they didn't realize was when they link flowtoken.vault, there's actually no resource interface restricting this link. So essentially what they did, right, and you can see they actually linked it, right, just this keyword link to a public path. See that this says /public/flow token receiver. So what this means is that the public can now access the entire flow token vault. So what that did was it created another arrow for the public, right? Or actually, I'll do it this way. It created another arrow to the public to withdraw. And this is really bad because, of course, now the public can withdraw from this vault. Now, the question is, how do we, prevent this from happening in the future? Well, the problem was they didn't use what we called, resource interfaces. They didn't restrict this linking to only being able to, deposit and rebalance, right? Now, the way you would do that in code is you would do something like this, right? They actually had it right here. They were so close, but they just messed up. This link right here, fungible token at vault, and then you see these little brackets right here. These are called restrictions, or these are you list resource interfaces inside of here, but it restricts the linking. So in this case, they restricted the linking such that you can only access whatever fungible token.receiver is telling you to access. Now again, you don't have to understand too much about what that means, but I will show you what this means in code, and it should make a lot more sense. So let's actually pull up the fungible token contract here. Now, this is a contract that basically defines fungible tokens. And if we go down to here, look right here. This is a resource interface. This is exactly what we were talking about before. This is something that, will restrict users from accessing certain things and not others, right? So in this case, fungible token receiver allows you to deposit, right? This function is called deposit. And this other resource interface, balance, allows you to read the balance because it has a balance variable inside of here, okay? So unfortunately, when they were running this transaction, they were checking to see if you had a fungible token vault that was restricted by receiver. And if you didn't, right, so this is fine so far, but if you didn't, then it was going and linking your entire flow vault. But this right here should have been restricted. It should have been restricted by fungible token receiver. So what are people's thoughts on this? Does anyone have any questions so far about what exactly the problem was? And I'm going to, after a couple questions here, because I know people are going to have some, I'm going to help you better identify when bad things are happening inside of a transaction.
I've got a question, Jacob. It's not necessarily related to the implementation. I was wondering, how did they work this out? Was it a white hat notified them, or were they just kind of doing a code review? Do you know how they found it out?
Oh, like found out about the bug?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Although I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
that
so two wallets got like what is called like a hack or drained. So I'm pretty sure that that's basically how they found out, because this vulnerability has been going on actually like more than 100, almost 100,000 flow tokens, and maybe also like combined with some FUSD, I believe were vulnerable for the last 2 months. So like, yeah.
Well, they must have been to some extent. Then they must have been lucky, because I'm guessing that the people that had their funds drained must have been at least semi-technical, because surely the average user, if they just woke up one day and there was no flow in their account, they probably wouldn't know where to start looking, right?
Yeah, so the strange thing is that, like, if the hacker took some funds, why didn't the person just like look for all the rest? I still don't get that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. Do we know how much was taken?
It's not public yet, but there have been 2 major accounts that has been hacked, as far as I know, but they haven't shared any numbers.
Right.
So, but I know of 2 that was hacked that lost quite a lot of funds, and I think the reason they didn't do it with all of them was they didn't want to get attention. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw as well that Matrix Market are refunding them, right?
That's what I've heard. Yes, that they said it in a Twitter post that they were going to refund the users. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. I see that Drun actually, hey Drun, thanks for joining, has a question. So Drun said, would you say the attacker is a thief if the contract is actually permitting it? So I'm going to dive into this a little bit, because there's a misconception that the contract was the problem. And in fact, even Matrix Market themselves when they tweeted about the mistake, they actually had mentioned that they updated their contract to remove the exploit. But once again, this actually wasn't this wasn't the contract. This was the transaction that was the problem. So their smart contract was completely safe. And you know, for those of you that don't really understand that architecture in Cadence, what happens is you have something like a contract right here, right? And then on the side, you have transactions and scripts. And these are two very different things. A transaction will, you know, call into the contract and change something. So change/update data, right? Whereas a script, and also for those of you that are not talking, do you mind muting your microphone? A script will actually read into the smart contract. So read information. Okay. So their matrix market contract was completely safe, but it was the transaction that was calling into the contract that was messing with users' accounts. And that's what we're actually looking at right here when they were linking the user's flow vault to the public. Yeah.
Leo said in the chat that a lot of users don't even know that they need to fix the linking. I think what BZ said at the beginning, at least from my perspective, is probably the right course of action. If this is your platform, you're probably better off draining the accounts yourself. You've got the user information in the back end because you'll probably have their emails. You just send them an email and say, look, we've protected your funds. We want to send them back to you, but you need to link it, and then we'll send them over. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that's the right course of action, or would you leave the accounts vulnerable?
Yeah, I think like if they're going to reimburse anyways, right? Like they might as well, but probably not say that we took your funds, more like we locked your funds. Like be careful with the wording.
Yeah.
I think I want to like comment on Kugender's like comment with a, you know, is it actually stealing? Well, you know, I think ethically, well, if you see a wallet, right, like in real life, and you take the money, and well, you know, you're basically stealing from someone, especially when it's a wallet and there's usually an ID. The same goes with like just the blockchain, and here it's even worse because it's quite clear where the funds came from. So yeah, it's stealing.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm not sure where I stand. I'm curious about what others think. I mean, my natural instinct says that that's not a good thing to take users' balances, but I think, you know, probably is more practical that way because it will help users not get hacked. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess, you know, the next part of this discussion I want to talk about is like, you know, where we go from here and how does someone that's non-technical sort of, you know, prevent this from happening in the future, right? Well, number one, you know, the one thing I want to mention is, you know, you can always read the code of a transaction before you sign it. So this is the case for any wallet, but I will, you know, just give you an example on Float, for example. Can I do that? Okay, let me just put some random things here so I can random things, and I'll press create float. Oh, okay, wait a second, it's still loading. So I want to show you what it looks like. So if I click create float here, I'm not going to actually create a float. However, if I click on this script here, you'll see I can actually view all of the Cadence code. Now, you know, this is actually it's quite a lot, but you can view the code here. Now, when you're viewing code of a transaction, there's two parts to a transaction that I actually sort of started drawing out over here. Let me keep going with this. There's two parts to a transaction. There's something called the prepare phase, and there's something called the execute phase. The execute phase you don't really have to worry about. And the reason for this is because inside the execute phase, the transaction does not have any access to your account. Okay, so if I was to go to this transaction again, right, we can see there's a prepare phase right here, and there's a bunch of scary stuff inside the prepare phase. So we're going to skip through that. And then we get to the execute phase. Now, the execute phase, again, you don't really have to worry about because nothing complicated is really happening here. It can't access your account at all. So with that in mind, we specifically have to look at the prepare phase. Now, what I've drawn out, I'm going to X that out. What I've drawn over here is, you know, this little red alert box is I can do anything I want with your account in here. And the reason for that is because when you sign a transaction, your account gets put inside of what's called an auth account. Now, an auth account, I'm going to draw a little arrow over to here. An auth account type, this is like a certain type in the code. this has access to everything in your account. So with an auth account, I can withdraw a float token, I can withdraw floats, I can steal all your NFTs, everything, right? So you have to be really careful, because what this practically means is that anytime if you sign one malicious transaction, I could drain your entire wallet, right? If I trick you into signing a random transaction that's bad, I could steal all your fungible tokens, I could steal all your NFTs, I could steal everything in one sweep, gone, never to be seen again. Now we're lucky that this transaction was not intentional, and it was, a mistake, and that it didn't actually steal, tokens, but it just linked them to the public. So that's a very different thing. But you do want to be careful that you can do anything. I can do anything I want with, with your stuff in here, right? So, and again, the reason that is because of this auth account, and you can see that in this transaction, right, this auth account, it's called ACCT here, which is short for account. It's called ACCT, and anything that happens on ACCT is something that could potentially be pretty bad. Now you'll notice that the thing that actually did happen was on the ACCT, variable here. It took the auth account and then linked, your flow vault to the public. So, and I guess all this is to say that anytime you're running a transaction on Flow, really want to look at what people are doing with your ACCT, or your account, or sometimes people call it a signer. Whatever variable is here next to the auth account, that's what you have to look out for, because people may try and do something like, if we were to go down here and say, like, signer dot borrow your float collection, and then on the next line they'll say something like, let floats equals, they'll borrow your float collection, and then something like floats dot withdraw, right? Obviously that's pretty bad, because they're withdrawing from your account. Or if they're linking something, for example, if they're linking a flow token vault here, there's no restrictions, right? There's no resource interfaces here preventing this from being, preventing people from withdrawing. So this is also pretty bad. Any questions about any of that?
Very good summary, Jacob. I think also it's what you put in prepare and what you put in execute, and also pre and post. We as a community should be more vigilant on that, right? And use them more for what they are for. And the tooling vendors should, because here everything is in prepare, but they're actually doing a lot of things here as well, right? They're executing things as well, or linking, that is. But I mean, linking you kind of have to do here. If not, you just have to send your auth account to execute, and then it just breaks, right? Another thing I would like to mention. So Courtside has a comment here. This is actually in the works. So a more way to have safe transaction, or know if they're malicious. There's something called the flow interaction templates that Jeff is working on at Dapper, and that would allow us to have human readable transactions in the wallet. So Flow is working with the wallet providers and on actually making a registry of interaction templates that will enable wallets to then give you a friendly message on what's going on, and it will also enable them to see if, for instance, a contract you're interacting with in an interaction has changed. Because that's another attack vector that wasn't used now. But that is actually, the transaction is the same, but one of your imports is different, if you get me.
Yep. And I want to expand on that, Bjartek, because it's such a good point. In light of something like this, even a transaction that was not meant to be malicious but was, this sort of arises a need for people to audit, which means to basically check the safeness of transactions, to help other users out, right? And so, like Bjartek was saying, Jeff from the Flow team has been working extremely hard on allowing this. And what he's doing is he's sort of building the technology to allow auditors, right, trusted auditors, to verify these sources. And so, basically, what that boils down to is he's allowing us at Shield to help verify transactions. So I want to show you a quick, example that actually Hao, who's the founder of Lilyco Wallet, actually, demonstrated, where when you run a transaction on Lilyco, if it's been verified by Emerald Shield, it will display a verified badge here. And if it's not been verified, then it'll display a red, this transaction is not verified. And so, hopefully of course, it's up to you who to trust. If you didn't want to trust Emerald Shield, that's up to you. But, something like Emerald Shield would be great for users that, are not technical, do not know how to read, transactions very well, but are able to, at least trust Emerald Shield and assume that their transaction is safe. Because obviously something like this would never get approved.
I think the thing is with flicks and auditing, don't get me wrong, like it definitely has its place and is a really important part of the blockchain environment. But if you look at what I think it was Courtside said in the chat, he suggested using NLP to predict kind of unsafe scripts and transactions. I mean, you wouldn't even really need to have that. If you were a wallet provider, all you'd have to do is write a JavaScript script that reads the cadence script and looks for patterns that are unsafe. So like an overscoped vault or like a collection that isn't scoped properly, you quite easily flag those to the user and say, hey, this is going to provide unadulterated access to your account. So I don't know if has anyone kind of has that been discussed before, or
Well, I think
Nope.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear Bjartek's opinion about this, but in my opinion, I don't think that would ever truly work. And the reason for that is because it's not just, flow token or or your basic NFT collections. You could have any resource that would have a vulnerability associated with it, and without manually updating that JavaScript code, it'd be really, really hard to constantly flag that stuff down. Of course, like it would help, right? Like you could say, oh, they're linking, the signer, the flow token vault to the public, you could certainly catch that sort of error. But long term, when you talk about like, JavaScript code being able to understand something like that, it's just going to get really hard, especially because, coders can name things whatever they want, right? And if you, for example, let's say I created my own fungible token, but I called the deposit function withdraw and the withdraw function deposit, and then all of a sudden the JavaScript code can't pick that up. You run into weird things like that. But I'm not saying it.
I mean, but the standards have set names for certain resources, right? So you always have to have a collection and an NFT. You always have to have a vault. And so if you just search for those names with JavaScript and look at the scoping on it, then it might be a good starting place to kind of provide awareness of what a transaction is doing, and it's automated.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Oh yes, you can go, Bjartek.
I think this is an angle that one wallet can do to make them a good option, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure if JavaScript is the right tool, because you actually if you write this in Go, you have the AST and everything, and then you can analyze the AST, and that is a lot safer than just analyzing syntax. So actually analyzing the data behind the code. But anyways, it's certainly a good thing to look for. But I have another thing that I think would make this a lot harder to do and a lot easier to detect when it happens. And that is actually to emit events when you unlink and when you link. Because if the flow runtime emits an event when you link something with the capability that it's linked to or the type it's linked to, then you can have alerts when people link things as flow token provider, right? So flow token vault implements provider. If anybody links anything publicly with provider, you could have an alert, and you would instantly know the first time somebody does it. And actually, I don't like that they unlink flow token receiver here in this example. I think that is a big no-no on unlinking these things, but that's just me.
Yeah,
could you elaborate a bit on that, please? Why you think it's bad to unlink and then relink?
So unlinking up the core paths that every flow account that is created properly with flow token balance and flow token receiver, and when you unlink that, then you're actually that tells me that you're trying to do bad things, right? When I first signed this transaction, because I was vulnerable for this exploit, my account, but I patched mine really early. So when I looked at this transaction when I signed up, I immediately spotted that line where they unlink the flow token balance, and I don't think you should do that. To me, that's just a bad sign. You're trying to be nasty when you unlink the core things, right? If that is not linked properly, you should just panic or whatever, because then somebody else has messed with the core things, and to me, that is just, yeah.
Yeah, see,
Yeah, no, I completely.
I want to pause this conversation just for a second here because there's a lot of people in here that are not technical and don't know these terms. So I just want to explain this for a second. And of course, Phil and Bjartek, feel free to jump in here. But it's not necessarily the unlinking that's bad here. In fact, there's a lot of transactions where unlinking is actually necessary. So I want to just say to all the users here that if you ever see something like account.unlink, that doesn't mean bad. It just means that something's happening here. The reason that it's bad in this case is because on every single, and the reason that I was confused by this transaction initially is because every single account on Flow has Flow token linked properly. I believe Bjartek, am I wrong here? I think Flow token is the only thing that's already set up in users' accounts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. On a Blockdo account, yes.
Yes.
On a Dapper account, you have it differently, and that's So on the Dapper account, your flow token receiver will not be that. Then it will be the token forwarder, and not that one, right?
That also makes it weird, like because Matrix Market only supports like Blockto, right? So why did they do that? Like, why did they unlink the flow token? Like, why did the dev do such a thing? That still like makes me wonder what happened. Another thing regarding like what Fiatix proposed, like events. Well, the issue with that is that then anyone could just like create a server and just listen for events and like check is this wallet drainable yet or not. So that also creates new issues.
But security by obscurity is never a good option, right? And that's what we have right now. We're just making it visible. It's always the better choice. You can argue the same. Should you have a GitHub repo private or public, right? And I mean, having it public will also allow others to spot your bugs, right?
Bjartek, do you think that having an event emitted on link and unlink would open up spamming opportunities?
There's already plenty of spamming opportunities on Flow. That hole is already open. And I'm sorry to say, Jacob, but it's float. Because everybody can mint a float for free. And almost every Flow user has a float account, luckily. So if people want to spam, they can already spam as much as they want.
Yep.
So I don't buy that. I don't buy that argument, right? That this would. So I want it there to make it secure. That's the most important thing. I don't want users to be scammed. And if you can emit an event when you link and when you unlink, and you add the path, and then you add the type of the link, so all the things, that will make it more secure. Maybe you can even fail the transaction if it emits that event, right?
Yeah, so I want to bring this back a little bit again because we're getting too technical, but back to the original conversation here where we're talking about, why is it bad to unlink or any of these things? Well, the reason is because, float token is already set up correctly inside of every user's account. So it never makes sense to, try and fix that link again because it's already correct. So, you read lines like these, and this is where, Bjartek was raising red flags. We're unlinking, right, a flow token path, which is essentially what this means is this is a way for users to read flow token vaults, and it's already done correctly. So the fact that they would unlink it is a bit strange, right? It's weird that they would do that, in that case. And of course, then we get to the error here. And just like Amethyst was pointing out, I want to take a little quiz in chat. Just to see if people are somewhat understanding this. I want to look at two lines of code. I want to look at this line of code, and I want to look at this line of code. So let's start with this one right here, right? Based on what we've learned today, when we say account.link, right, we have an FUSD vault, and we're restricted to fungible token.balance, right? That's what this means. This is a resource interface. So if we go ahead and look at the balance one, all this does is allow us to read a balance. So if we were to look at this line, I'm going to put a little quiz in chat. Answer here. Put a thumbs up on this if you think that this is fine, and put a thumbs up if you think, or thumbs down if you think it's bad. Go voting today. Great. So it seems like 8 people voted that it's fine, and you would be completely correct, right? Because in this case, again, we're linking the FUSD vault, but it's restricted to a balance resource interface, and that this is public, right? Great. Now, when we look at this one, let's take another vote in chat. Let's say answer here. With this one, answer again, is this one bad or is this one good? And if you vote bad, you have to explain why in chat. Why is this link bad for the public? Exactly. Good job, everyone. Good job, everyone. With BRTech leading the way. Great job. So once again, this is bad because this is not restricted at all. So what this means is that the FUSD vault, right, is completely exposed to the public because there's nothing restricting it. Now I want to try one more. I'm gonna type in chat. What if I'm gonna paste another line in chat? What if it looked like this? Now this is gonna get a little confusing, but let's try it. What if it looks something like this? Now you can ask me a question in return. Put a thumbs up on this if you think it's good, and put a thumbs down if you think it's bad. Now, for those of you that say bad, you also have to tell me why it's bad. And for a hint, I'll show you what provider looks like. This is provider. So this is what's inside of provider, okay? So keep that in mind. Getting some good answers in the chat. Great job. So all of you that answered are completely correct. So the point of that was I don't want you to think that just because there's a restriction, it's automatically good. There are also resource interfaces that make something bad. And in that case, that's what provider is doing. It's allowing you to withdraw from an account, which is definitely not what we want to do. So good job, everyone. That was my short quiz for today. Yeah.
Jacob, can you go back to the transaction again, please?
Yeah.
Because if you scroll up to the top, because there's some other things here that are wrong, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is, if you look at line where they link the balance, that is also wrong.
Oh, this one.
Or I mean, sorry. My daughter is calling me at the same time. I just have to make her stop.
Hang up on her. Block her number.
Yeah, I'm trying, but she's calling me again.
Block her number.
So I mean, the problem here is you're not scoping it to the flow token, no, to the fungible token, right? So you're saying any resource that implement balance, right? Is that the right thing here or the wrong thing here?
This is definitely wrong.
Is it? Do you care? Do you care what resource provides balance?
Well, I guess for you and me it's bad, but this isn't like you're not going to be able to withdraw funds here. Yeah.
You should have the resource in front, right? Because you're saying if you look at the storage, it's saying flow token vault, but then you don't have the resource specified between the and the resource interface, right? You should have the specific resource that you're trying to scope. Is that right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Just so sorry, I was just confused because my girl was calling me. So the fungible token balance there. For that link, I think it's correct that you don't care about the implementation because this is a balance. But if you scroll down, further down, stop, matrix market, where they link that. Can you see that? They link that. No, yeah, but that one and the one at the top. You see here?
Yep.
This is very dangerous to what the thing they're doing there, because they're not specifying the implementation on the NFT collection. if I here create a contract that implements matrix market collection public, right? I can implement that in my account. So my implementation is differently. I unlink their path and link mine in a user's transaction. Then I can hack people here. So this is also dangerous. You should not do this. Here you should specify the implementation when you link it. So the matrix market collection, right?
Yep, totally. And I think it is also weird with this one too, because technically, like, I could make my own fungible token and put that here, and then when someone reads my balance from this path, they're gonna think I have a crap ton of flow when it's really just my own spam token.
Yeah, but I mean, for a fungible token for receivers, for instance, I think it's so in Find, for instance, we have a profile that acts as a receiver proxy, so you can receive any funds. And if people start to link with, it has to be the flow token vault receiver, right? Then it won't work, if you got me.
Yep.
And Dapper themselves have, if you go to the metadata views file, right? They have this global receiver that they're also wanting you to set up, that they plan for us to use, right?
Yep.
So it's linking is very hard. When I made Versus, I actually linked things wrong because I didn't know how to link it properly. So it's a hard subject, right, to understand the difference really of when you should link with full capabilities and when you should not link with full ones.
So Beate, what sort of mistakes were you making then when you first started out?
So when I first started out, so I only linked one restriction on each path, like they do here in Flow Token Vault and Flow Token Balance. You see, you don't really need to have two paths here. You can link something with multiple restrictions, right? So you can say this path has both balance and receiver. That's totally possible to do, to have multiple restrictions. And I didn't restrict them to the type, to the specific type. So I did that mistake myself, but this was back in 2020, right? For Find, we don't do that, but for Versus we did. So it's very very important to link correctly, and also, I mean, they don't link the metadata views here either. I don't think they implement it properly, so they don't do that either. I don't like that either, but that's up to them, right? What they want to do, I guess. So
Yeah.
linking things correctly is very important. I think maybe this was created before this, or started before the standard was a thing, even. So that's might be why they don't do that.
There's one other small thing I would pick up on here as well. They have hard-coded the paths. They should really be referring to the paths in the contract, right, to avoid typos.
Is that possible with the flow tokens? Like, did they upgrade?
No,
I'm not sure.
no,
I'm not sure.
no.
Yeah. So that's why.
So you cannot right now, at least, you cannot add a contract field to a contract, or a field to a contract. They have talked about about the possibility of doing that in the future, since it's really a singleton. But the way it's implemented now, it's not possible. But they have talked about actually allowing that. But right now you can't. But also, my personal opinion is that path should contain the address of the account where it is in. That's my opinion, right? That would make my life so much easier. Actually, some people have talked about removing paths altogether in a future version of linking and capabilities. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, always lots to talk about. Thanks so much for BR Tech, BZ, Phil. These are all amazing comments. I don't want to keep the session too long. I think we already covered a lot about vulnerability, things to look out for in the future. Of course, if you really are confused about a transaction, there's nothing wrong with just copying the code, pasting it in a community like, .find or Emerald City and asking, is this okay? Is this transaction good? There's always people to, to help. BZ, what will EC do to help prevent this? I was talking a lot about the Emerald Shield earlier. We're going to be doing a lot of audits on transactions, submitting them to Flix, which is what Jeff is Jeff is developing from the Flow team. This will be present on Lilycode pretty soon. I think that Jeff actually recently released some updates to allow us to do this. So we'll be submitting transactions that are audited pretty soon. And, once we do that, we'll submit them to How, and, we'll see if How gets this test going, a live version. I also want to give a quick shout out to FlowView. Lanford, I don't know if you're still here, Lanford. Oh, no, you are here. Hey, Lanford. But this is a really, really awesome tool that also kind of helps with this. If we go to, for example, if we go to FlowView and we go to an account, if we scroll down here, we can actually see, right, all the paths that are in the public, and we can see also what resource interfaces are, implemented on each of these resources. So this is really cool because if we were to go to even fungible tokens, we could have seen, for example, that the provider was accessed. So this is a really awesome tool for developers to see what resource interfaces are exposed. What's implemented on each account. You can see a bunch of NFTs, right? So if I wanted to see all the floats in this account, I could see a bunch of floats. There's Andrea in all his shining glory. It's a really awesome tool just to view things about a Flow account. And I'm pretty sure you can also do a bunch of other cool information about keys and stuff like that too. So thanks so much, Lanford, for all this amazing work. And, this, again, it's a great tool to see what's inside of an account. Lots of love to Lanford. Pretty cool.
So if we could sing, I would say we should sing Happy Birthday to Willy Blue, but I don't think we should. Because I can't sing for sure.
Beate, that would be
And
so
Andrea
great.
can
Please
sing.
do so.
Andrea can sing. He can
Alright,
sing for her.
I'll lead the happy birthday. Ready? All right, here we go, everyone. If you want to sing, unmute your mics. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to you.
you. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday, dear Willy
Willy
Blue.
Blue. Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday
to
to
you.
you.
Woo! Way to go! Yay! Happy birthday, Willy Blue. I hope you have an amazing birthday. That was probably the best thing I've ever heard. I think me and Andrea I think our vocals really go well together. Yeah, the Emerald Band. That's hysterical. I think that's a great way to wrap up the session. Thanks everyone so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something today, and I also hope you stay safe out there in the future. Also, this was all recorded on YouTube, so I just had to put that in there. So your birthday wishes will forever be on YouTube. And this was awesome. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks all those that contribute to the discussion. Always a pleasure. All right. What is it? It's Friday. Oh, TGIF, everyone. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some time with friends and family and recover after Thanksgiving if you celebrated. All right. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.